Hello and welcome to the 36 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. Very pleased to say thank you to our brand new sponsor, Academy Sports and Outdoors. They carry all the best gear from the top brands at prices you'll love. Shopping is more convenient there than ever before. You can go to academy.com. You can also get on the Academy app. You enjoy free shipping on orders of $25 or more with sign-in. You've got easy in-store or curbside pickup. You can shop anytime, anywhere. Find the widest selection of colors, styles, and sizes from grills to fitness equipment to workout clothes. Everything you need to have fun out there is right there at academy.com. So really excited about that new sponsorship and new partnership. And I am equally excited, maybe more excited, to introduce our guest today, the great Graham Rossini. So the listeners, you will, if you're not watching, you will notice, well, first of all, Graham is the athletic director at Arizona State. Me and him go way back. Worked together 25 years ago with Arizona State baseball. If you ever are playing Jeopardy and you get the category athletic directors who love baseball, who is Graham Rossini? Might be like an $800 answer. You could see he's got a Pedroia bobblehead in the background. We've got all kinds of great baseball swag there. Graham, you're one of the great baseball uniform designers of our time. Will you accept that compliment?
Yes, gladly and thankfully.
Yes. Hey, so Graham, let me give the listeners your background. So, obviously this is going to be a very collegial discussion because Graham and I have known each other so well for so long. But and I couldn't be more proud of Graham's career. Graham was a student at Arizona State when I was coaching there. He then became an intern, for Arizona State baseball, then became our director of baseball operations. I would claim that Graham was the first director of baseball operations. I don't know that there was such a thing at the time. And Graham was with Arizona State. Then he was with the Diamondbacks for 15 years, had become a vice president of the Diamondbacks. And, Graham's working on these huge products like Salt River Field, which, I would contend is the very best spring training facility in all of professional baseball. Worked on an all-star game with the D-backs and then came back to Arizona State a few years ago. And recently in the last 12 months, was promoted to the athletic director. And again, I know I'm biased because of how highly I think of Graham, but the vibes around Arizona State athletics, they are, as the kids would say, vibing. Like it is, there is incredible positive juju around ASU. Graham is also, and Graham, I need your commentary on this. You are one of the tallest catchers I've ever met in my life. I'm got you at like 6'5" and change. And it made me think of other tall catchers who I really like. The great R.J. Harrison, longtime Ray scout, one of my all-time favorite humans. Ben Davis, of course, who I coached, 6'5" catcher. Greg Halverson, I'll throw Halvey in there, who's we now have his son as a second-generation Sun Devil.
Three gems.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Graham, talk to me about being a 6'5" or better catcher. How's that happen?
So I don't know that I've ever shared this with you, but I think you're directly responsible in a way for that. So this is kind of life coming full circle here. So it's great to be here. Love the job that you and Kendall do, and just pumped to talk college baseball any chance I get. I grew up in Mobile, Alabama. I shopped a lot at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Nice.
That's where I got my DeMarinis and Wilson A2000s, and that was the sporting good shop of choice in the lower Alabama area. But we also had the AA affiliate for the San Diego Padres, and aforementioned Ben Davis, on his way up to the big leagues, came through Mobile when I was 15 or 16. I'm like, wow, he's 6'5", good arm. I had one of those three things, and
so, maybe all three though.
I'm gonna give this catching thing a try, and I loved it. And so my second half of high school was behind the dish. I loved calling the game. I loved having the field in front of me. As you and Pat Murphy were quick to point out, that was probably long term not the best decision. And when I came out to ASU with dreams of walking on, when I showed up and I had number 18 waiting in the locker, and then a couple months later it was number 61, that was probably the warning sign that this wasn't going to play out. And if I'm not mistaken, you are the person who ended my playing career after a Tuesday night D-Pound game. If Sun Devil baseball alums remember those battles at Packard Stadium in the fall. But I think it was after hitting maybe 245 in the ASCL is when it all came to an end. And yeah, being 6'5", light hitting catcher, probably not the best long-term strategy, but here we are.
Oh, it's so great. And I could say as the coaching staff meeting Graham, in your mind you're thinking, and this is no offense professional baseball players, but in your mind you're thinking, man, you are way too sharp to be player. Like you need to be like up the hierarchy, up the food chain in sports. And so so good. So Graham, I want to again, there are athletic directors out there that coached college baseball. I think about Ray Tanner and John Cohen are the ones that really come to mind. And that gives them a certain affinity for college baseball. But I think that your background is even more important and more unique because, of course, a former college baseball coach is going to love college baseball. You were in the weeds with us at Arizona State. You know, you're in that internship. An internship is not like we're dropping in the office for a couple hours a week, right? Like internship is like, you know, under Pat Murphy, under Murph in those days, like you're all in. If you're involved in the program, like you need to plan on not having a social life. Like this is your life. Like this is, and I mean that in the most positive, like you're getting a PhD in college baseball. And, you know, like I think about one of my big memories, Graham, is like you're in the weeds in recruiting. Like you're helping us design a jersey for James Shields on a recruiting trip. And we used to do stuff like that. Like you're all in. And I remember one of the pinnacle moments for our era at Arizona State, I had moved on 2005. We finally break back through to Omaha. And I remember you're in slacks looking sharp like you always do. You're in slacks and a golf shirt in the dugout when that final out is recorded. And you know, like you're in the dog pile in dress clothes. And I like you're that invested in our program. And you know, of course, all of our phones are exploding at the time and everyone's, you know, calling each other and text each other. Everyone's super emotional. And so I guess my question, Graham, is like, how did that, like you're so invested in Arizona State baseball at that young point in your career? How does that impact what your career has become?
I mean, everything good in my adult life happened the moment I became a Sun Devil. And, you know, as a kid growing up, you're watching the College World Series. Arizona State was a fixture. My senior year in high school was the '98 championship game against
Wow.
USC. And, you know, Willie and Andrew Beinbrink and Halvey and Ryan Mills and Jay Sitzman and just on, these incredible Sun Devils that, you know, kind of captivated the country. And then I'm like, wow, I'm going there next year. This is going to be amazing. And I think the best thing that ever happened to me is that my playing career didn't work out, and I got a head start on life after baseball at 19 or 20, and you guys threw me in the deep end. And I can't tell you the value that that created in my career and my awareness, my ability to, you know, navigate professionally. And I remember Murph saying this repeatedly. He's like, "Hey, I want to coach and recruit. I want you to be able to take on more and more of the day-to-day operations, of the business side of it, of the relationship management." And at 22, 23, 24, being in meetings with Scott Boras or general managers or presidents of companies and being able to articulate our vision for Sun Devil baseball and what we're trying to accomplish, man, what a head start that gave me on whatever came next. And there were a couple of times that coach wanted me to get in uniform and kind of, you know, tempted the ability to get back on the coaching side. And I think you're right. I knew that I was better served behind the scenes. I was better served maybe administering a program and trying to open up doors and build connections. And it's proven to be the right decision. And I look back on those 8 years so fondly. I mean, it was a labor of love and it was a full commitment, and wives were involved. Jenny was an instrumental part of that. All of our coaches' wives and kids and families. You know, when you know Josh Holliday's got kids that are growing up now, and I can think back to
Crazy.
Olivia at 3 years old, and you know Brady coming on the scene, and I'm excited for his baseball journey. And so, anyhow, just these rich, fond memories that stay with me to this day, and it's a cherished era in my life, and I'm so thankful for everything that it's allowed me to accomplish since then.
So you were telling me, Graham, like I didn't remember this part, but your senior year, like this is like you're done playing and like we're doing this. And you had a conversation with Murph and he basically said, look, like you're going office 9 to 5 and you need to finish your classes at night. Like tell me that I would imagine calling home to your parents, that must have been an interesting conversation.
I probably, you know, maybe was light on the details at that point. You know, he was a master of coercion, as we all know, but he just presented it and said, "Hey, there will be a full-time job on this coaching staff waiting for you the moment you graduate. And in return, I'm asking you to adjust your schedule." At that point, it was 2002. We were really recruiting at a high level. We had Ethier was here, Ian Kinsler, Pedroia. A lot of these foundational pieces of our program were on campus now, and we knew that we were building this thing back to that great Omaha run. And he said, "Hey, if you can be," it was early era of online classes. Evening classes were a staple, and he's like, "Hey, I need you around during the day. We got a lot going on. And if you can adjust your schedule, you're going to have such a head start. You're going to hit the ground running. And then sure enough, I remember we were coming back from a road trip at Stanford that spring of '02. And, we're back checking at the airport, probably San Francisco International. The rest of my class would have been back here on campus going through the graduation ceremony. And he said, "Hey, you're a graduate, and congrats, you're a full-time employee of this baseball staff." And man, what a gift. And like I love the work. Like I truly enjoyed year by year how he kept adding to my plate and letting me take on a bigger role in how we were operating in the program. And then it was really the most unceremonious but also seamless transition into adulthood or the professional workplace that you could have asked for. And that was a Sunday afternoon, and Monday it's just, all right, you're a college graduate and you're a full-time employee, and let's get after it and keep building.
That's awesome. One more question, Graham, and then we'll do the big picture stuff. Is there, of all the things you've handled in your adult professional life, and it's an incredible litany of things, is there anything more stressful than being the director of baseball operations for a team that just qualified for Omaha that Sunday, and you've got like, I don't know, 72 hours to like make that trip that you didn't know was coming. It was 50-50 whether it's coming. I got to do that once, and oh my gosh, I didn't think I was going to survive the week.
Yeah, that's a pretty intense 72 hours. And I know it's evolved since I was in that seat, but I've talked to many assistant coaches or director of baseball ops about, hey, like, get ready, buckle your chin strap. This is going to be a week for the ages, and there's so much going into it. The only thing that rivals it is now that we've had the college football playoff experience this past year with our football team winning the Big 12 and advancing to the Peach Bowl. Very similar in terms of just the intensity of planning. The difference would be going from Big 12 championship to CFP was the luxury of, multiple weeks to get that going. But I mean, that's full band, that's full family travel party. But winning a super regional, preparing to go to Omaha, that's probably not a more enjoyable 72 hours or intense 72 hours that I can think of. But welcome that any chance we get to be in that conversation.
That's right. Pray for the problem. So perfect segue, Graham. So let's talk about, like, in your role now as the athletic director, of a P4 athletic program that is thriving. Obviously, I know I am biased, but I mean this when I say it. It's like, and this is not just me saying it, like the positive momentum around Arizona State athletics, just like the vibe there is something really special. And I feel like your personal investment and enthusiasm has been a big part of that. Of course, we know it takes many things to get the ball rolling in a positive direction. But here's the question. We're going to talk about college baseball tonight. In your seat, you have like revenue is finite, right? Like you can't invest in everything. You can't pick everything. And I think about Arizona State, because I still live in the state. Like football is thriving. You want to feed that beast. Your hockey program makes money. Like that generates profit. Like you want to feed that beast. Your women's volleyball program under a fairly new coach won the Big 12 in their first year in the conference. Like that's a huge deal. And that's a sport that's got tremendous commercial value, I would assume. The two basketballs, Arizona State softball's got incredible, that's got national championship pedigree. So
Right.
where does, for us that are listening, that we're baseball people, like where does baseball fit in this big landscape? Because you don't get to pick one sport anymore. You have to kind of survey the entire landscape.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have 26 sports, and that runs the gamut from college football and basketball to beach volleyball and triathlon and everything in between. And shout out, triathlon was a seven-time consecutive national champion and national runner-up this year. Beach volleyball just got to the tournament for the first time last spring, and so. But point being, like we have a lot of mouths to feed. We have a lot of sports. We have a lot of opportunity. But there really are those seven that you mentioned that we've got to put a lot of attention into building as commercially successful programs, because you need a lot of resources to support 26 programs, and we've got to generate the revenue and the relationships and the opportunities across the department to invest it through all 26. And the seven that you mentioned, football, men's and women's basketball, hockey, volleyball, baseball, softball, in our opinion, are the seven that give us the best chance of commercial success, driving revenue, creating resources that we can reinvest throughout the department. And what I would also say is that, in my opinion, there's never been a better time to be a Power Four athletic department at a Research One university in a major metropolitan market, because we have access to scale. We have access to population. We have access to decision makers and corporations and people that are looking for something to connect to. And our model moving forward is really simple. I mean, we're trying to connect with kids and families. And when you've got 7 programs that give you a chance to sell tickets and partnerships and donations, et cetera, we've got to be focused on that. And so, baseball is critically important to where we're moving forward at Arizona State. And when I took the position, one of the charges from Dr. Crow was we need baseball back on track as soon as possible. And there's a legacy dynamic to baseball at ASU. It's been a minute since we've been in that national conversation. I think we're really close, and there's some exciting things on the horizon for Coach Bloomquist and our baseball program. But I think college baseball has proven that a lot of people care a lot about it, and that's reflected in attendance across the entire country. That's reflected in the television interest. The College World Series continues to grow. It's just one of the greatest events in the world. I've been lucky to be a part of World Series and Final Fours and you name it in my career. I've been very fortunate, but I have a hard time telling you something that's more fun than going to the College World Series as a member of a program. And we're trying to get it back there as quickly as we can.
So Graham, I want to, before we come back to like locking in on you and Willie, and when I say Willie Bloomquist, your vision for Arizona State baseball, you used the phrase commercial success, and I think you started down the road, but I want to kind of finish that part of the conversation where I think as a baseball person, I worry that commercial success is it's more narrow than I'm giving it credit for. I'm thinking like, okay, do your cash receipts from merch and concessions and tickets exceed what you're doing from a cost standpoint? But you mentioned the College World Series a little bit. Like I remember a couple years ago, we had a World Series where Dak Prescott is there supporting Mississippi State, Jay Cutler is there supporting Vanderbilt, and Peyton Manning's there supporting Tennessee. And then last year, it's Peyton Manning and Morgan Wallen, and like the Tennessee thing is it's like the Beatles. But like when you think about commercial success, what are the ways baseball can contribute?
Yeah, I mean, I think commercial success may be misrepresenting the mission. We're talking about driving affinity, and again, you've got 26 sports, so we want wherever you're from and whatever you're into, you've got somebody to connect with. So you've got somebody from Canada or the upper Midwest. We've got this really up and coming hockey program. That's a great chance to get people into a conversation. We've got people from both coasts that love beach volleyball and get them on campus to watch beach. And then we're cross promoting all of our sports to make sure that they understand, hey, it is baseball season, or we've got football right around the corner. We're just trying to drive affinity. We're trying to drive a spark and a connection to ASU and whatever that means. And then at some point, affinity leads to value creation. Value creation leads to resources, and those resources are what we're trying to reinvest in the department. And so we just want to build a great fan experience. And that would go for any of our sports, but particularly college baseball, where we've got this legacy program. We've got this iconic venue at Phoenix Muni. We've got great weather in the spring. It's almost like we're trying to mold a spring training fan experience with the most meaningful baseball in the state and pair outdoor, backyard, food and beverage as the experience anchor, a great venue, the sense of history around it with what arguably could be and should be the most meaningful baseball played in the state of Arizona, and marry those two things together where if you're a young family with kids, if you're an alumni, if you're a business professional, that's where you want to spend your time in the spring because it's an incredible experience. You're supporting something that's meaningful and you're contributing to a great home field advantage. And so I think commercial success is probably not doing it justice. It's about building affinity, building this spirit of connection around Sun Devil Nation. And the fact that we've got baseball and softball in the spring to do that is huge because our value proposition is year round. We start in August with soccer and then volleyball and football. We're going to wind down in the spring with baseball, softball, track and field. We're trying to bridge that gap along the way where there's just this continuation of the year that culminates in baseball if we're doing this at a high level.
That's awesome. Hey, so let's talk about Arizona State baseball for a second, Graham. Like I think, I think I can make an argument that the West Coast kind of birthed modern college baseball, right? The 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the Sun Devils were right in the thick of that, right? Like 5 national titles in the 60s, 70s, and 1981 being the most recent one. But the truth is, where you grew up, SEC country, the SEC has taken college baseball and they are just sprinting down the track. We're in an era right now where 6 of the last 7 national champions in college baseball are SEC programs, and it's not one dynasty. It's 6 different schools. In the last 4 finals, 7 of the 8 teams have been SEC programs. So the SEC is, you know, and I think we can't be mad at the SEC for loving college baseball too much. Like we have to almost say thank you. But, you know, like if I'm in your shoes, you don't want to just like watch them do this. Like you want to trade punches with them. And so with the House settlement, there's some new opportunities. I would say we have the SEC to thank for this in some ways, but because the SEC thinks so highly of college baseball, in many ways, college baseball got treated like a major sport in the House settlement, and I would argue for the very first time. And so that gives you the opportunity to go 34 full scholarships and create revenue sharing. And again, like if you're listening to me, and I'm speaking to myself when I say this, let 34 full scholarships sink in for a half second. Like we had 11.7 5 minutes ago, right? Like actually we have 11.7 right now is what we have. And we're talking about the possibility of going 34 full scholarships. And so again, but it's going to be pretty wide open. Like schools can carve this out a lot of different ways. From your perspective, Graham, like what is your, what investments are you planning to make? What's your vision for Arizona State? What are you hoping to accomplish here for ASU baseball?
Yeah, well, Rhodes, I would agree. I mean, we've kind of allowed this movement towards the Southeast to happen over the last 20 years. And I tip my cap to the SEC. I think they've seized this opportunity of investing in the facilities, investing in the coaching staffs, and building these incredible game days and fan experiences that I've been talking about. And we've just kind of watched this happen, and nobody's really been able to find the way to, reassert themselves as a national power, or at least on behalf of the West Coast. And, it's interesting because I grew up in the Southeast, and I had some opportunities to talk to Tennessee and Mississippi State and South Carolina, but I was always enamored with the Sun Devils. And this was always where I wanted to come because college baseball was my introduction to a university and what that path would look like. And it's just bizarre to me that in my neighborhood in Phoenix, you see SEC flags and you see kids that are motivated to go to these great campus environments. And so, we've really looked at the landscape and said, hey, this might be the moment, whether it's tied to House settlement or this iteration of our athletic department, looking to reassert ourselves on a national conversation that baseball really matters at ASU. And if it really matters, we need to be prepared to make that investment in our ability to compete for the best talent, whether that's athletes and recruits, whether that's coaches, whether that's building a great fan base. And we're very much prepared to do that moving forward. And so, a lot of what we've focused on these last 7 or 8 months since taking the position was driving it around, creating resources that we're immediately reinvesting into the department. And I think that's the beauty of college sports is we're not satisfying, stockholders or ownership. We're reinvesting it into developing young people through sport. And the best way to do that is to build something that your fans can connect with. And that's allowing us to, push the envelope on where we go next and having 34 scholarships next year for college baseball. I haven't seen that announcement come through. I'm not sure what other programs are pursuing, but we want to give Coach Bloomquist the ability to go compete for the best talent. And whether that's the iteration of NIL and how this has progressed, 34 scholarships in baseball. Think about that. You mentioned we've had 11.7 since 1991. This is our chance to say, hey, we're committed to the sport. We're committed to being successful in college baseball once again. And we're going to give our coaches the chance to go recruit the best talent in America or the world for that matter to come to Tempe because we've got this proven track record. No program has done a better job in the history of the sport of getting guys to professional baseball. Most draft picks, a ton of guys that have played minor league baseball, 117 major leaguers, which I think is still top or maybe second at this point in the sport. Our development track record is there. We want to get back to championship pedigree and being in that Omaha conversation on a year in and year out basis. And so 34 scholarships, participating in rev share, having relevancy in NIL, having a great fan base, a great ballpark experience, all things that we're prepared to do as we go into next season and very excited to make all those announcements available.
That's awesome. Graham, you and I live this, but when you said 34 full scholarships, my first thought was Dustin Pedroia meeting with Pat Murphy and saying, hey, here's my 78% scholarship back. Go get us some expletive pitching, right? As only Dustin could say.
Yeah.
And like, and this is no offense to punters or football, but I'm thinking to myself, the backup punter on our football team, which is not as good as our baseball team at the time, he's on full scholarship, and Dustin Pedroia, one of the best, if not the best player in program history, is paying full freight. So like, there's that part of it, right? Like part of me, when I hear you say that, is like, man, how cool is that for all these baseball families that for years have left their, they go into pro ball with student loans and those types of things. so there's that part of it that makes me very happy to hear. But there's also like it's it's very bold, right? Like it's I'm no accountant, but going from 11.7 to 34 in a year, like that's a massive investment. And like I think there might be a lot of schools that would say we'll go from 11.7 to 20 or 21 or whatever. And that's a very reasonable and awesome thing. But is part of this like, as an athletic department, you guys want to like send a message is probably too corny, but like there's part of this where in recruiting you can say like, look, we're not dipping our toe in the water. Like we are jumping in the deep end of the pool here. Like I would imagine that gives Willie a really powerful message in recruiting.
Yeah, and I think it does as well. And the fact that we want to invest in scholarships in this sport where other schools are faced with that decision or maybe can't. And we're lucky that, Dr. Crow, in the 20 years that he's led Arizona State University, has been on this meteoric rise. And I think he's now sensing that there's a different conversation for us to have in athletics as we're getting relevant in the Big 12 and we're in, these championship conversations in a number of our sports, but also the fact that let's kind of return our programs to glory, the ones that have been there. And a lot of it starts with just getting elite talent, no different than we do from a business college or a communication school or an engineering major track as well. A scholarship is still intended to give a young person a chance to propel themselves in life after sport. And we're not willing to compromise the fact that we're still trying to educate young people. We also want to put them in this incredible setting as a competitor at the highest level of college athletics where they leave as superhumans. They're well educated in whatever they want to pursue. They've got access to this ASU network. We're in the fifth largest city in America. Every company has a presence here, or our university has a connection to any industry that a student would want to pursue. And they're going to come here and compete for a championship. And when they decide that, hey, Mother Nature is undefeated and it's time for me to transition to what's next, we've given them a head start into life because they've been on a scholarship and they've had a chance to pursue academic dreams and desires and baseball dreams and desires. And you made a great point. Like the families aren't having to come out of pocket for little Johnny to come be a Sun Devil and go compete at a high level. And I give credit to Eric Bakich. I think was the one that is in the early days of NIL was trying to come up with a mechanism just to do that, make sure that his roster didn't have to come out of pocket to go represent Clemson. We're taking a different approach by going very deep on scholarships where we want young people to come in here and invest into their ASU experience, invest into the academics, invest into this environment, and have a chance to get to Phoenix Community and have that be the best part of their day. Go learn the game from coaches that have played it at the highest level. Be a part of this incredible alumni community and make the most of it. And for us to give them the tools and the resources to be successful, we're just asking that our athletes meet us in the middle and kind of understand what's at their disposal in a situation like ours, and use that to go accomplish their wildest dreams and expectations. I've got no at bats in our program. I don't have a moment of playing time, and I'm lucky to sit here as the athletic director. And that's one of the thousands of examples of what this university can do for a young person. And we want to get the best talent in America at Sun Devil baseball.
Oh, I love it. That's great. And any coach would tell you that, like, the players that you attract, at the end of the day, that's what makes the difference. You could be the best coach in the world, but if you're not attracting elite talent to use your phrase, then you have a ceiling. There's no question. And I love the boldness of this move, Graham. I can't speak for what all the work it entailed, but at the same time, like in any business, to take a certain cost in your business and multiply it by 3 times, that's a real chips in the middle of the table moment. But I also do believe that good fortune favors the bold. So I applaud this move. I think this is so cool. I think it's great for the sport. It's not just great for Arizona State baseball. I think it's great for the sport for call a fish, a non-SEC school to say we're all in. Like, let's go. Like
Right.
I think that's awesome. Hey, let's.
Go
ahead.
Would you mention like it in its simplest form? It's an investment in young people, and that's where we want this to be unique. Is that again, we want a young man to come into this program and commit to using the tools and sink into his education and sink into his program. And we found our way in NIL. We've got we're lucky to be in this metropolitan area. We have access to companies and decision makers and people who will identify that a Sun Devil baseball player is the perfect person to represent my business, my product, my company. Not having somebody try to find a part-time job to pay for their student loan, but go commit to their major, go commit to baseball, use the NIL as a platform to build resume experience and a professional network and get that head start on life after playing, or for that matter, as they get to the next level and they've started to get some marketing savviness and some ability to understand what it's like to represent a company as an athlete. A lot of baseball players today, they started playing at 4 or 5 years old. They didn't have time for the high school part-time job. They didn't have a chance to do an internship or study abroad. And we want to use this moment, the scholarship investment, the access to NIL, rev share, in a way that we're going to be able to apply that into baseball to make sure that they can invest in the environment around them as a Sun Devil, and then leave and go accomplish whatever they want to do. I think it's a really strong and healthy investment into our baseball program, and can't wait to see what it unlocks for us moving forward.
Yeah, to add on to that, Graham, like I am 13 years in my medical sales career that I never wanted to happen, and but I am grateful for, and it's everything you just said, right? Like I got into medical sales because of a contact through baseball, and I've been able to last 13 years because of the skills that I learned as a player and a coach, and so I think to your point, athletes, people in athletics, we sell ourselves short when we think that this is all that these incredible skill sets that we've developed can harvest. There's so much more out there for you. But to your point, like sometimes your time is so tight that as a student athlete that you don't have the opportunity to kind of flex those muscles. But my poor day job company, Graham, they have to suffer through so many baseball analogies for me. It's I'm not kidding, Graham. I literally showed pictures of Craig Counsell's eccentric baseball stance at my national sales meeting 2 weeks ago. Yeah, that's right. You got to
Have
be
you
willing to do things.
ever
Oh, go ahead.
have you ever pop up slid into a boardroom?
I've never done that. But that picture, that
Let's
picture,
go.
that picture with me with grass stains on my uniform is percolating right now. So,
Number
uh,
66 in your program, number one in your hearts.
that's right. Oh
You.
gosh. Us. Hey, so Graham, one final question. So this is just a light, fun question, but I think it's important. I think about all the time, what's the next iteration of college baseball? Like, what do we need to do to continue to advance the sport? I think I'll give you some of my thoughts. I think field of 72 is important. I think we're leaving too many good programs. Even at 72 out of 300 programs are in the NCAA tournament, we could have fun with it. We could do playing games, and that's still 25%. That's like a pro sports league wouldn't even dream of having only 25% of their teams make the playoffs. They would laugh you out of the room with that proposal. I think 32 hosts, when I think about your program in Arizona State, I think about how great the atmospheres are at Phoenix Muni. That's a big league ballpark. But right now, to be one of 16 hosts, those are very thin margins. 32 hosts, I think, is that if you back me into a corner, I'd say that's the most important one.
Yep.
I love that coaches are talking about a fall roster cap so that we don't hoard talent and then discard it. And then those kids, we don't want mid-year transfers. Those are, you and I have lived through those. Those are just really unfair to all the kids, I think. But let me stop there. Is there any idea for college baseball out there that really resonates for you as an athletic director?
No, I like the idea of looking at the tournament format, and I'm surprised to say that. Meaning, going to the tournament was always an expectation. You never imagine a world where we weren't in the field of 64, and here we are the past 2 years being one of the first teams on the outside looking in. And what I've noticed in the 3 or 4 years since I've been back in a college setting is that, man, college baseball has gotten really good, and there
Yeah.
are hundreds of programs that compete at a high level, particularly that a lot of universities see the value in high-end college baseball and are making that investment, but also because the MLB draft went from 40 rounds to 20 rounds, which means the talent entering college baseball is better than it's ever been before. So there is parity and there is this kind of distribution of talent across the nation. And it's a lot harder to get in that field of 64. And what we've seen maybe in the expanded college football playoff as one example of giving more fan bases a chance to connect to a playoff, giving more athletes a chance to compete for a championship. I think that's very healthy. And when you talk about the percentages, over I think 300 programs playing Division I college baseball, to say only the top 64 are in, maybe it is that time to look at what are the format changes or the playing games. I like the idea of more regionals on campus. I just, the 1-4 games are so exciting. Those 2-3 games can sometimes leave a lot
Mm.
to be desired. And when you give more fan bases a chance to touch postseason baseball and the energy that comes with it, and how it showcases the universities. ESPN's been such an incredible partner in the sport. And when you get that look at wow, that facility looks better than it did a year or two ago, or that campus looks like a great time, or look at how they're showcasing the history of their program. I think it's important that we get that message out to a national audience more effectively. So I like all that. I like the fall roster cap. I think we're at a moment where departmentally, it's bigger than baseball, but the cost of doing business is changing, and so having some controls about the number of athletes and not leading young people on that they're going to come to university, then 6 months later you're not part of the plans, and you've got to go scramble at the break to find a junior college spot or go elsewhere. I think we've got to get that part in order. We've also got to be mindful of the grind of fall ball and injuries and wear and tear, and so I think there's a happy medium on how we do that, and limiting some programs from oversigning or finding that happy medium. But I just think college baseball seems to be in a very healthy spot, and it's important that you have people that are connected to it and passionate about it across the table to be able to have these honest conversations and figure out how we just making a better product. A lot of attention's on college football, college basketball, and rightfully so. But I do think baseball and softball are going to continue to emerge in this national conversation as sports that are not only relevant, but they're viable in where college sports goes next. And I just appreciate the way that you're always looking out for the game and suggesting these ideas. And it might just be that seed plant that needs to happen. Then a couple years from now, people sit around the table and say, yeah, let's give more athletes and programs and fan bases a chance to touch a run to a championship. And then, man, all bets are off at that point.
Graham, I'm doing the heavy lifting every July. I create a field of 72. I'm doing the committee. I got you. Like you don't even need. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. I actually do that article every year. But
Right.
yeah, I'm with you 100%. Graham, this was awesome. I really appreciate. I know how busy you are. I really appreciate this. Yeah, of course, very proud of what you've done and excited for Arizona. Hey, this is the state I live in, right? And so I want to see all the universities in the state excel in college athletics. And this is an incredible announcement, not just for Arizona State baseball, but for the sport. A huge investment on your guys' behalf. So thank you for joining us. And yeah, like it just keep doing your thing. Really cool.
Hey, I failed to mention that we put a couple million into the ballpark as well. So we finally updated our lights. We've got the new LED lights. We've got new
No.
audio, updated the branding. We've got our pitching lab decked out. I mean, the Whiteman Family Performance Center is now a showpiece for pitching. And, I know Jeremy Accardo's come in here and done an unbelievable job with our pitching staff. Can't wait to see the results this spring when we get going here in a little bit. But yeah, we're trying to push on all levels. Again, like we truly believe in the upside of Sun Devil baseball. We're willing to make that investment in all aspects of the game day experience, the commitment to scholarships and rev share, and can't wait to get the season going here in less than 2 weeks.
Graham, that is one Arizona State baseball tradition that is good to eradicate. We were known for bad lights, and it's good that we're going to have people with bad bulbs like myself. It was always problematic. So well done on that.
And ironically, we've got the lights set on 42%, which you'll appreciate for a number of reasons. And
nice.
with these new LED lights, you crank them up to 75%, you're getting a suntan at the ballpark. So
oh my gosh, that's awesome.
May not be good for business there.
That's very cool. So awesome. Well, good stuff, Graham. Hey, for the listeners, as you're listening to this, we are like a week away from opening day. So excited for us that live out here in Arizona. We have so much good college baseball that will start on Valentine's Day. I encourage everyone, get on the website. It is ablaze with all the conference previews and player, the player rankings. There's so much great stuff right now. That is it. Everyone have a great week, and we will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.